the person. We put on tefillin. I get tzedakah from them, but I also bring a greenie for the dog. So what? The dog sometimes, at least in 2 instances, yes.
But it's not part.
Actually, I have a picture of with Aryeh Schnapps. So I have a picture of Aryeh and his dog Lily. Lily's wearing a yarmulke. She's very frum. She's very frum. Lily, yep. So in any case, um, so I go on with greenies. I'm almost like Kabbalah Savua. So Kabbalah Savua was very generous, and then of course Rabbi Kiva married Kabbalah Savua's daughter Rachel. And like I say, that's how generous he was. When Jerusalem went under siege, the hotheads, extremists, Antifa, whatever you call them, when they um, when they had this started this political revolt against Rome. Rome came in, crushed the land, and made a siege around Jerusalem. So the three wealthy men at the time, one of them was Kabbalah Savua, said no problem. One said I have enough um, grain to supply the city for 22 years. One said I have enough wood for fuel to supply the city for 22 years. And the third one had enough, I think, oil. So they were good. And then the extremists went and burned down all the storages. And there was nothing in the city. There was a horrible famine. In any case, after the destruction, so there was a girl, I forgot what it was, a young woman. She was maybe collecting weeds to boil the weeds to have some kind of soup, some kind of thing like that. And the rabbis asked her who she was, and she said she was the daughter of Kalba Savua. And I don't remember exactly, perhaps she asked, like, her father gave so much charity, and look what the family's come to. And the consensus was that he was fabulously wealthy. As much as he gave, he didn't give commensurate with his ability, which would imply that it could be that he gave 20. It could easily be he gave 20%, but for where he was, for his status and his wealth, he could have given more, should have given more, and that's what it says there. Again, it doesn't say a percentage there. It doesn't say if he gave 5%. It doesn't say if he gave 15%. It doesn't say if he gave 25%. It just says that whatever it was, he didn't give enough. So I think that the law of giving standard 10%, someone who is um, and someone who is very generous, got a big heart, gives 20%. It seems like that is it's speaking about just a typical situation. Okay, all right. Does that help, Nancy? Okay, great. So the verse here, Pasuk in Mishlei, Proverbs says 24. There is one who scatters and gathers more. One who refrains from what is proper only for loss. The Hebrew word that's used is scatter. He translates in the book as gives generously, specifically to tzedakah. Although from the the verse in Proverbs is not necessarily referring to tzedakah. It's not obvious that it's talking about tzedakah. That's how we understand it. Okay, so why don't you begin over from we will now explain on 9:14.
We will now explain the mystical meaning of the verse. There is one who gives generously, yet ends with more, which our sages applied to the mitzvah of tzedakah. Indeed, we will also relate this verse to the same subject, for Yesod is called the righteous one, tzaddik, inasmuch as it gives tzedakah to Nukva, who is a priori termed righteousness, tzaddik, but thereby becomes charity, tzedakah. The word for charity, tzedakah, is composed of the word for righteousness, tzaddik. So tzedek, dalad, kuf, plus an additional hey. Since the hey at the end of a word is a sign of the feminine gender, tzedakah may be considered the feminine form of tzedek. Thus, Yesod transforms nukva into a female.
Um, so now that he brings this up, that the word tzedakah, we always translate as charity, and it's something of a misnomer because the word tzedakah is actually comes from righteousness. It's a feminine form of righteousness. And now that I'm looking, because it's the right thing to do. Giving is the right thing to do. It's not just charity where it's out of a person's benevolence that they give charity, but we view charity as a responsibility that God graces us with, um, money or wealth, and it's now our duty to be able to give that to poor people, to transfer that to poor people. So we are kind of stewards of the money that God entrusts us with, and that's the idea of the righteousness of charity, of tzedakah. I'm looking at this. Obviously, when we talk about the feminine principle, in this case that would be nukva, the 10th of the sphera, the malchus. When we talk about the feminine principle, that represents the idea of being a receiver, something that gets. So in tzedakah, you have tzedek and you have hay. You have the one who provides the tzedakah, and then there is the one who receives the tzedakah. Anytime you have one who provides, that is the masculine principle. The one who receives is the feminine principle. Okay. Possibly. Maybe I'm losing it. I hear you. Where did we have that? That a woman is Gvura? Okay. Great. Good. Thanks. Okay, Alan. Go ahead.
Now, the verse speaks of the tzaddik, that is Yesod, as giving generously. The literal meaning of this word, "mefatzir," is spreading, implying that it crumbles the supernal states of chesed into small crumbs, which scatter from the pulverizing blows. This is in order to give these crumbs to Nukva, and the crumbs spread throughout Nukva, similar to how the coins of tzedakah a person distributes spread salvation throughout the world.
What? Pennies from heaven.
Right.
Huh? So, so the tzaddik or the righteous, the one who gives tzedakah, is scattering like the coins, and that's the idea of okay
Giving tzedakah.
giving stuff everywhere, and that's the idea of giving crumbs to giving to nukva. Okay, go ahead.
You should not think that these states of chesed are diminished by passing through their anpin, nor that they lack anything by being given to tzedek, that is nukva. On the contrary, the result of this process is not a lack, but ends with more.
That's what the verse said.
Yeah.
That there is one who scatters and gathers more.
For these pulverizing blows magnify all the states of chesed and their light increases infinitely. Their anpin grows through this process, as we have explained elsewhere. This is the meaning of the phrase, yet ends with more.
Go ahead.
Their anpin must process its abstract experience chesed, breaking it down, or concretizing it into terms and contexts that are meaningful to the objective oriented parts of the nukva, in order for the latter to assimilate it. Lest one think that their anpin suffers from its marriage to nukva, for which it must trouble itself to contextualize its inherent abstractness, which would seem to be a regrettable descent. We are told here that it in fact
Matures.
matures and develops from the process. The descent into reality rebounds as a greater ability to achieve abstraction.
You get that? What I think it's saying,
Yeah.
if and this is the idea of tzedakah. A person gives tzedakah, so they see, well, now they gave away money, so now they have less. So the pasuk says that if you give tzedakah, you give away money, you end up with more. Over here, he's saying, explaining how that works through the spheres. It's that chesed means kindness, generosity, benevolence. So chesed is closely aligned with tzedakah. Chesed is the first of the spheres that are called Zerampin, the first of the 6 that are called Zerampin. So when Chesed gives, you would think that it would be lacking, but it tells you it does not lack. Why? Because when Chesed is distributed, when benevolence is distributed, it is broken into small pieces and it gets scattered. The word in the pasuk is scattered, and it gets scattered. And therefore, through the pulverizing blows, through the blows that break the chesed into small bits, the light increases infinitely. And Zerampin grows through this process. The 6 male spheras, which means that they give, are greatly magnified. And so too, by giving tzedakah, the person isn't lacking any funds, but they gain, and certainly spiritually, they gain immensely. What it reminds me of is perhaps tzedakah, a dollar. So a dollar is one unit, it's one piece of paper. Today, it's pretty much doesn't have much value either. But you weigh it, and it's it weighs very little. But if you break it into change, if you break it into 20 nickels or 100 pennies, now you're able to distribute, you're able to help many more people with the same dollar. Before you have a dollar, you could help one person. Now, A, you're able to help a lot of people, and B, it's going to be much heavier. It weighs a lot more than the $1. Perhaps. If you're using actual money, not just currency, if you're using actual money, that means
Coin.
real silver coins. That's not, a dollar's worth of silver is going to equal in weight 120 20 nickels if they were made of actual silver. If you're using actual real money, we don't use real money, we use currency. Did anyone notice that silver is hitting 6-year highs? Silver and gold are hitting, gold is hitting 6-year highs. Okay, silver 1450. So that's one thing. Another example that comes to mind is a piece of wood. You take a piece of wood, a log, and you try to light it. It's going to be very difficult to light. But if you break it or cut it into small pieces, then kindling, or even not, if you just break it into 20 pieces, 50 pieces, it's going to burn a lot more because there's a lot more surface area. So it'll catch a lot more and so on. And perhaps this is the same idea as breaking the chesed into pieces. What he says is through blows, and then the light increases infinitely, and that's the idea of tzedakah. And that's especially which aspect of tzedakah the word scatters. The pasuk uses the word 25 yesh mifazer, that somebody who scatters. That's the idea of scattering, that you've broken up the brick into many pieces, and now you distribute all of the pieces. And isn't sawdust explosive?
Yes.
Sawdust can be explosive because of you increase the surface area. Okay. All right. Okay, 9:15, near the top. Alan, go ahead.
It could be that this is why Yesod is called Yosef. Yosef is associated with Yesod by virtue of his sexual purity. Here we note that the word Yosef means he will add, alluding to the increased Yosef that is the holy coupling with Nukba causes in Zeranpin.
Okay, we need a few explanations. First of all, Yosef, the 11th son of Yaakov, and the first son of Rachel. When he was born, why did she give him the name? Torah says the reasons for each of the tribes. So the name, the reason for the name is an indication of his essence, of Yosef, because she said, I'm not satisfied with one, that God should give me an additional son. She wants the next one also. So Yosef means additional, or that Hashem should add. So it shows the idea of increase. Yosef, we know his episode when he was 18 years old or 17 years old is the incident with Mrs. Potiphar, and that he resisted her advances. It's in a person. We've talked about the ability to procreate as corresponding to the sphera of Yesod, the ninth of the spheres, and that fact that Yosef resisted the advances of Mrs. Potiphar points the reflection of his great holiness and purity in this category, in this field of being being pure. So Yosef is the epitome of he's the manifestation of the sphere of Yesod.
Rabbi, if I may interrupt.
Yes.
So manifestation of Yesod, are they talking two different things? Like his soul came from Yesod, and also he came to this world like a channel to connect to the levels of Yesod of the world. This I don't understand.
You see that this was a very strong trait of his. The fact that he was able to withstand that as a teenager, 17 years old, and he turned her away. No one would have known the difference. No one was around, and yet he ran away he repelled good word. He repelled her and he ran away. It points to how strong this trait was within him, and that this Sphira was dominant within him. Does that mean he's the only person? No, but if we want to give a classic example, then we refer to Yosef. That is at the basic level. We refer to Yosef as the epitome of the sphere of Yesod.
So it doesn't mean he's a channel to this world?
It may, it could. I don't know.
Okay.
Could it be?
Okay.
Nancy's asking if
To bring Yisod.
like if he is actually if Yosef is actually a channel to bring Yesod into the world. We find a similar idea that our forefather Avraham. Yeah, but maybe he. The question is like, is he okay? He's Yesod in the world, or he lived his life being a exemplifying this, being a perfect model of Yesod, or you're saying this is Yesod. Could he is not the only one, but he is referred to as Yosef at Tzaddik. Thank you. Good point. He is
the only one of his brothers.
we think we might say Binyamin Hasadik also. But certainly Yosef is called Yosef Atzadik, and because he, I'd say the reason there is given in Egypt, which was a immoral, decadent land that he kept. He maintained his morals, and therefore he's called Yosef Atzadik. Correct. So it could be. We find by Avraham that Avraham also was. It says the same idea that Avraham was the epitome or personification of chesed, of benevolence in the world. Chesed, of benevolence, and so much so that the sphere of chesed complained to Hashem and said, what do you want me to do? Retire? Like Social Security? I have nothing to do because there's Abraham. Metaphorically speaking. The sphere of chesed, of benevolence, of kindness. Because Abraham replaced it. He did it. So we have this idea where a person is the personification or the manifestation of the sphera. But that is something, obviously means that that's dominant within them. We know for a fact that Abraham was aligned with the sphera of chesed. But also it's something that he worked on, that he lived with, and that he developed. He developed. He personified it, but he was born with it. But then he developed it even further. So I want to go back here. Any question, Nancy? Doesn't mean what? It probably with Abraham we know it's written that it did. With Binyamin, it could be that was dominant within him, that he comes from that as a special affiliation with that sphera. But again, they work to develop it and not just leave it as okay. I would, do I know what sphera I'm connected with? I don't know. But I know that how I am today is not how I was 30 years ago. I hope not. I hope I've either developed and matured, or that I've been able to hide any that I can better hide any of what I haven't developed or not matured. So, anyways, I hope I'm not the same person as I was 20, 30 years ago. So we're people, we grow, we develop, so most probably that they are aligned with the spheres. Avram certainly says is aligned with Chesed. I haven't seen that Yosef is aligned with Yesod, but certainly he personified it. Most probably he was aligned with it to start with, and then he developed it, and grew to be an exemplary model of that sphere. So he, okay, you're welcome. So now I'm trying to see the connection here. Yeah. So what's the connection? Because I'm not sure if he states it explicitly in the book.
Um,
So we're talking about charity, which is tzedakah. So that's related to a righteous person, which is a tzaddik. So what you're saying is that Yosef added and added. He gave he supplied the world at that time, or the region, with food, all those nickels, and without the food, they would have died. Okay, thousands or more would have starved to death. So he supplied everyone with food, and that's the idea of Yosef. That's the idea of tzaddik. Okay? That's the idea of Yosef. The additional idea of tzaddik, of tzedakah, the concept of tzedakah within the term tzaddik, righteous. And what did it say? And this is the idea of Yesod, because Yesod is of the 6 spheres of Zeir Anpin. Yesod is the one that connects with Nukva. Right? Yesod is the connector of the 6 male spheres with Nukva, with the feminine principle. And that causes an increase, not just in Nukva, but also causes an increase in the Zeir Anpin. I'm just thinking now, what happens? Man and woman get married. Okay, they join, and what's the increase? They have a baby.
or 2 or 3 or 4.
Or 2 or 3 or 4. So they procreate. They exercise fertility. It's exercise in fertility. How do you like that? You ever heard of an exercise in futility? This is an exercise in fertility. And then there's more. So that is the idea of Yesod. That is the function of Yesod. And in this case, and what does the verse say? Going back to the verse, again, this is Mishlei, Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 24. There is one who scatters and gathers more. So you give tzedakah and you get more. Yosef gave tzedek, he gave tzedakah. He's known as Yosef Tzaddik because he gave a lot of tzedakah, and that brought an increase for the world, and also through that is an increase in Zeir Anpin. And that is the role that Yosef, in this case, and Yesod played. Okay, it all ties together.
So will it be with someone who gives tzedakah. He will not suffer financially from this, but on the contrary, he will become wealthier and possess more than he did beforehand.
Okay. I'm going to copy this and distribute it when I do my fundraising. Actually, this isn't only written here; it's also written in the Torah, explained in the Talmud, that avarikosilachem in the Tanakh, avarikosilachem bracha ad v'dai uvechanun avazos. God says, "Test me on this, test me, try me out. Um, you give tzedakah, give charity. It's the mitzvah where Hashem tells us to challenge Him. Exactly. Thank you. And then I will pour, I'll gush out the bracha ad die until no end, until no measure, until not enough. And the Gemara says until your lips get worn out, saying enough, too much.
In the same life cycle period or in the different context?
In the same life. God says, test me. God says, test me, and this is clearly written.
You get it now.
All I can say is that
Yeah, you'll get. Don't worry.
it should be fulfilled for all of us speedily.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, let's continue. We got another page and a half. All right, middle of 9:15. Now we're going to switch books. We were in, actually, same book. We're in the Tamei HaMitzvahs, the reason of the mitzvahs, and the next section is found both in, actually, it's parallel passages. The one on the right, in Hebrew, the one on the right is the Tamei HaMitzvahs, reason for the mitzvahs, and the one on the left, Sefer Likutim, the book of collections. Collected teachings, not collections like the plate.
No.
Just a little flower, a radish, little new thing.
The mystical meaning of tzedakah is as follows. When you give a coin, consider the word for coin, perusa, to be made up of two letter groups, Hey Resh Tes and Vav Hey.
So this pruta is the smallest, is not a generic coin. Pruta is a specific coin that's the smallest unit. It's like a penny. I think it equals the weight of two barley corns. The weight of two barley corns is one pruta, and I think that's silver. Okay? By comparison, just 1 minute, how did they measure the silver here? We're on air. We're going to be like another 15 minutes or so. Will you be able to a little farther? Thank you. Just to show you how these units are uniform. So the Constitution authorizes in Congress, and the word it says is to coin money and to set weights and measures. What does that mean, to coin money? Does not mean to make a Federal Reserve. It does not. Yes, it does not mean to make a Federal Reserve. The federal government has absolutely no authority from the Constitution to make a Federal Reserve that's in charge of our money supply. I don't know if it's been challenged in court. I don't know, and if not, I don't know why it hasn't. And if it was, and it wasn't, they didn't rule that way, then the justices don't know what they're doing. In any case, so they do have no authority. What they do have authority is to set uniform numbers and to mint. What does it mean to mint? That means that when people take your silver, you go to the government and say, here, make coins out of this. So they're going to take your silver and they're going to weigh it and set it into uniform coins. So one of the things they had to do was to decide on a uniform standard amount of $1. Weights and measures. So dollar was I forgot the guy's name, something Thaler or something Thaler, was somewhere one of the European countries. that used the dollar. They had Spanish coins, a lot of Spanish coins running around here at that time, and they measured them. They went around, they did a survey, and they took an average. The average was they weighed it, they measured it in something called grains. You know what it is?
I forget.
I'm not challenging you, but
No, they still measure things in grains.
so I guess grain is a very small amount.
Very small amount.
And what I think is, if you drop the silver into boiling water, then it splits into uniform sized grains or something like that. I'm probably a little off with that. But the grain was, everyone knew what a grain was,
Right.
what the weight was. And so how much was and what they found was the average was, if I remember correctly, 273 and a quarter grains of silver per dollar. 273.25 grains of silver per dollar. Okay? And I have no idea what that is in ounces. That would be something.
I forget.
It's a uniform measure of weight of metal. I'm guessing. That's what I asked. I think there's something that when you do in the processing that there are uniform. There's a uniform size called a grain. So okay. So anyways, so a pruta is equal to 2 barley corns of silver, and it doesn't say if it's like GMO barley from Monsanto. Drive over to Worcestershire Street, Indian Orchard. Go to Monsanto. Yeah, I looked up once.
Yeah, yeah, a grain is, tell you like this. The amount of a grain is 64.799 milligrams.
How did they come up with the grain?
I
I'm gonna say I was created before milligrams were created.
uh,
We can continue after if you want to continue reading. So the smallest coin is called pruta, um, and that we're gonna at 5 letters. We're gonna divide into two groups: the first 3 letters and the last 2 letters. No, we're gonna divide into two groups. The word pruta comes from the shoresh, the root word parat. Pay resh tet. Today, if you want to ask for change you want to get change. You want to break a $20 bill. You want to break a $1 bill. You ask lifrot, and the word means to parse. I never thought of that. The word means like to detail. The words for details, um, or it's specific, and probably the idea of to parse, to break into small parts. And that's the word pruta. It's the smallest unit of coinage that there was. So the 3 main letters are Pei, Resh, Tet. Then the 2 function letters are Vav and Hey. You have an answer?
oh no, a grain. There's 480 grains in an ounce.
480 grains in an
Doesn't
ounce.
say where it came from. Uh, yeah, it's measured in grains.
Okay. I just told you. Do you remember how many grains in a dollar? 273.25. You probably won't even find that on Google unless you Google the number. It might show up. Okay. So there. That's a freebie, guys.
Uh,
When you give a coin, you did.
um, I'll do. When you give a coin, consider the word for coin, peruta, to be made up of 2 letter groups, pei, resh, tes, and vav, vav, hey. The origin of strict judgment is from the 288 sparks of tohu that fell into the lower worlds when the vessels of tohu shattered. When to this number the kolel is added, we have the numerical value of pei raised tes. The word we are translating here as coin is peruta, which is actually a coin of a specific value. That is the minimum value that is considered money in Jewish law. If one gives less than this amount, it is not considered as if he gave anything. He has not fulfilled the commandment to give mitzvah, to give tzedakah, and he has not accomplished any of the mystical unions described here. The value of the pruta is that of 25 milligrams of pure silver. The value of this in present day money fluctuates according to the value of the currency.
Someone someone standardized it. Okay. Okay. Good. Thanks.
The word pruta is spelled out pei resh vav tes hey. This may be split into pei resh tes and vav hey. The numerical value of pei resh tes is 80 plus 200 plus 9, which is 289. Evil, suffering, and all varieties of occultation of the divine presence result cosmologically from the collapse of the world of Tohu, in which the sparks of holiness of this world become embedded in the gross materiality, relative or actual, of the subsequential created worlds. The general number of these sparks is 288, as we have explained previously.
It says that uh, the second pasuk in Torah, second verse in Torah, says, "Haaretz haisasal v'vohu." The world was tohu. We usually translate that as chaotic, without form or order, orderless. Home, there was darkness all over the depths. V'ruach Halakim, the spirit of Hashem, mirachefes al pnei hamayim, hovered or was hovering over the water. And the word for hovering, marachefes, so the root is reish pei ches, or reish ches pei, which is 288. And that's where we get the idea. Actually, and the other two service letters and the function letters in the word are outside of the root are met, death. So it's 288 and death, meaning 288 sparks were lost from holiness into the world. Those are the 288 stars. Yes, you can.
Okay. So the word of tohu, God was hovering around above the water in the word of tohu
Um,
or tikkun.
no, no, I don't want to get a lot into this because it's a different topic. We've had it a lot, but the at first, before our present world was created, as we know it, God created a world called Tohu, and that is um, it we usually it means nothingness, or we translate it in the Torah. We translate as the way it's used in Torah. We translate it as without order, chaos and without order. Um, so the what I quoted was the verse in Torah. So the verse in Torah says a certain thing. We read into the verse, and we have a deeper understanding of the verse. That was I was explaining. But I don't want to get into the whole Tohu and Tikkun thing right now. Just to say that the 288 sparks that were of holiness, that were um, that were fell, that's shattered, and are now in the world that we work to bring back, to restore to holiness. So that is at gematria, that the numerical value, which is the same as the three main letters of the word pruta, the coin. So except it's one off, and one off it counts in gematria in numerical value.
Okay, one more question. May I?
Yes.
was before Tohu.
What?
The word of Ad was before Tohu.
I'm not
What
hearing.
was
Adam Kadmon
Okay.
was before Tohu.
Adam Kadmon. It's
That
that's
was before Tohu.
yeah. It's not for our discussion here.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Thanks.
these?
Okay. 916 at the top.
These sparks are existentially ensconced within the final hay of the name Havaya. The final hay, Malchus, is the sphere of any world that descends into the next lower world in order to bring it into being and sustain it. It thus embodies the principle of descent.
And the final hey in the okay of God's name. All right.
When we join the final hay with the Vav, the individual aspects of the judgments are sweetened. This occurs through giving tzedakah. Joining the Vav and the hay ensures that the hay, the means of Hashem's and our expression, is driven by the Vav, the rectified emotions, rather than being a vehicle for the forces of evil. The letter group Hey Resh Tes spells the word for individual aspect, Barak.
Right. Individual aspect or parse or detail. So or specific. So what we're saying is that the word for the smallest coin, pruta, is telling us that we're going to divide the word into two groups, the letters into two groups. Hey Resh Tet 289, which is associated or symbolizes the 288 shards of holiness that were um, taken by the forces of evil that we work to redeem through our mitzvahs, and that the two letters that are left are Vav and Hey, are the last two letters of Hashem's four-letter name, Yud and then Hey, and then Vav and then Hey. The Vav and the Hey symbolize the Zeher Anpin, the six spheres of the male principle, and the hay of nukva of the female principle. And so that by giving the pruta, by giving charity, and notice it's not saying to giving $100, giving $1, giving the smallest unit, that giving this you are um, you are joining the vav and the hay, and you are redeeming the sparks, the 288 sparks.
All of them?
All of them.
No, not all of them, but you're a little, I guess, a little at a time. Okay.
The numerical value of the word tzedakah plus the kolel is the same as the combined numerical values of the name Elohim Adni, the number 45, and 4 for the four letters of the name Havaya. Tzedakah, Tzadik Dalad Kuf Hey, 90 plus 4 plus 100 plus 5 is 199, plus the kolel would be 200. Elohim, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, 1 plus 30 plus 5 plus 10 plus 40 is 86. Adi is Aleph Daled Nun Yud, 1 plus 4 plus 50 plus 10 is 65. Then 86 plus 65 plus 45 plus 4 equals 200,
Let's
which
double.
is the name for it, which is tzedakah plus the kolel.
Yeah, can we? It says over there plus the goal. Okay, can we just add that up? 65 and 45 is
100,
110, and 86 and 4 is
90.
90. 90 and 110,
200.
200. So that's Elokim, Adni, the 45 name of Hashem, the Mem, and 4 for the four letters. Okay, obvious, right?
Obvious.
Okay, go ahead.
The meaning of this is that the names Elohim and Adni, which both signify strict judgment, are sweetened by tzedakah performed with the 45 names. Generally, the 45 name, that is the name Havaya is spelled out such that its numerical value is 45, signifies selflessness, betul. Thus, we see here the importance of giving tzedakah selflessly.
The 45 name in Hebrew is, why is it selflessness? Because it spells ma, mem, hey. Mem, hey means what? When we look at,
45.
and we look at some of the great leaders and how they express their bittul, how they express their lowliness. So what did David Hamelech say? He said, Anochi tolat v'lo ish. I am a worm and not a man. What did Abraham Avinu say? Anochi afar va'efer. I am dust. What did Moshe and Aaron say? Anachnu ma. What are we? What are we? I wrote this in one of my messages a few weeks ago. They said, what are we? So, and that is the most bittul, the most selfless of all. But what doesn't say here is that which of the four letters of Hashem's name corresponds to the 45 name. Remember, each letter, so the Yud corresponds to 72, the first Terry corresponds to 63, the Vav corresponds to 45, and the Hey at the end corresponds to 52. So this 45 name is the Vav. That's the one that gives tzedakah that we're talking about. Okay, go ahead.
We will now explain the mystical meaning of the phrase, you shall surely open your hand to your brother, your poor, and your destitute of your land.
And that's how we open. From that passage, we didn't say exactly that verse. Go ahead.
You shall surely open your hand to your brother. This refers to Yesod. In your land, this refers to Nukva. That is the union of both Zer Anton and Nukva together, for through Tzedakah, Tzedek, Yesod, and Tzedakah, Malchus, unite, as is known. As we know, the land is an appellation for Malchus, the lowest Sephirah.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. So you know that I forgot who it was. The community. It's a true story. Community needed to collect a lot of funds. Um, they asked, and the rabbi was working on it. They asked him how his progress. He said he's halfway done. He says the poor are willing to accept. Now he says he's got to work on the other half to convince the rich to give. And then you have in here Hashem's names. Okay? Yeah. So, okay. So this we'll conclude this lesson. We finished on the top of 917. Thank you all for joining.
Robert, do you